asked like what topics people wanted, I think more than 70% people asked for fundraising meetings. So, yeah, I mean, funnily, last December also we did something like similar to that fundraising session. So it looks like a recurring theme.
Yes.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So,
yeah, and you're in San Antonio, right?
I'm in Austin, but I go to San Antonio because the rest of the team is there.
Down there, but you're based here.
I'm based here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
And how's your work going?
Very well, actually. I mean, we're close to starting to raise our Series A things. I mean, think about Series A in the next few months. So by
Do you
February.
have seed funding already then?
Yeah, we already had seed funding in July. We completed our seed round, and now we're moving towards a point where we need to start thinking seriously about Series A and starting our investor conversations just now.
Are you ready to do that again? Start back with the investor meetings?
Well, I mean, I have two other co-founders, so I'm pushing most of those.
Delegating that to them?
Yeah, they already taken care of that. So.
Did most of your seed come from Austin or San Antonio or outside?
Mostly from San Antonio because we were part of an accelerator there. And
Geekdom or
yeah, Geekdom, yeah. And Geekdom already had Geekdom fund behind it, and then they also had ties to a very close relationship with Active Capital and Alamo Angels and San Antonio Angel Network and all those folks. So they made a lot of introductions and really helped there. Yeah, but
did y'all win a pitch contest or something to get attention, or it just happened?
It's just because I think Geekdom at that time, they had an accelerator program called RealCo, and we were kind of one of the first people in the cohort, and the first cohort was just like 4 companies, so we got a lot of attention because of being a smaller space and also more focus on us. So that really
was that in 2017 when you joined that cohort?
That's right. 2017 was May June. So it was a 15-month program, and then after that,
one interesting thing I've learned as I've been listening, and I haven't been building our business for not even a year now, and so I still feel like I'm learning so much. But groups will often do more than one accelerator, and I didn't realize that until recently. So are y'all thinking of doing another one?
We already did 2 actually. So we did the one in San Antonio, and San Antonio accelerator was a 15-month program, but the other one, Mass Challenge Accelerator here. So we did that, which was a 3-month program. So we did that kind of simultaneously, and that ended like in July. And so
I'm thinking about being a mentor with Mass Challenge.
it's a really nice
great group of people, and I like how the time frame.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I'll let you get ready.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you too. Yeah, and thank you for sponsoring our December event.
Everyone responds, generally the same way to certain. That's kind of like the slide. I would get them started. We started out with live courses. Our approach was hire people or top so they had name recognition, and they really knew their subject. And but I was spending so much time making sure that the feed was good. For some reason, I wasn't able to watch the course. But yeah, it was all recorded. Yeah, awesome. I learned about sport. Make Was it cold though?
Yeah, so I'm did any of them,
Both these guys, I even contracted a guy.
contracted?
Yeah. So I was curious about like what your experience was like at what made you read it. That's a good book.
Thanks. Yeah, most people have never even heard of the book, so I wanted to make sure people knew about it and what it looked like. Yeah, we're actually just talking about it.
We were working together.
Okay.
He just jumps in the conversation.
That's great.
That's
great. Joseph?
Yeah.
Daniel. Jenny. Like Teddy with a J.
Jenny, okay. Cool, yeah. So tell us, what got you you built out
This is great. I'm almost always the person recommending this book to people who've never heard of it. Yeah, so we've basically got a platform that helps people with addiction and mental health challenges. Just patching. And I've been smoking up when I was over in and I hardly ever buy books. So I hardly ever buy books like off the spot, but it was so good, I was like, yeah, I really love the book. I've looked at some neat stuff on
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't say, so basically what you said to me.
What are some of the companies? What are some of the examples that they give in platform fields? I don't know why. Airbnb is like the one of the big ones. I think Amazon social media. That's another one. Uber. Yeah, I don't remember. He's also the director of because they're like marketing programs. Starbucks brings the coffee to you. Starbucks is not.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it's slowly started. It's going close to 7 o'clock, so please be seated.
Hey, are you with us?
Yeah.
Jetty.
Dan.
Dan, nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
All right, great. Well,
I'm here to make you guys look good.
oh really? That's funny.
That's my, that's what I got brought in.
That's funny. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'm running out of things today, so I think we're gonna all make each other look just right.
Okay. You just freaking killed it with the city.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I did as good as you can with the city. Try to get a government to do anything is an uphill battle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Once you get that contract out.
Yeah, it'll be worth it. Yeah. What's the latest? What's what happened this past challenge? What's new?
Yeah, we're just kind of like bringing in new partners and more of like more drugs, basically, to put in the pipeline. Yeah. So we're working on building the pipeline.
Yeah,
That's what we're doing.
And when you say more drugs,
we're a cancer therapeutic company. We're working on this one protein that we're still working on, and now we're bringing in. We're trying to get some new small molecules through this drug discovery company that uses AI. So that's like our new thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should introduce you to. How well do you know John Hickory?
Gosh. I do know him. Yeah.
Yeah, EQO?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you do know. Okay, great. Yeah, I just introduced you to him today. Yeah. But did you know John?
you introed me to him.
No, he was sitting down.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll slowly
Get this going.
You mean the other day?
Just earlier today, he was, and you guys were chatting about this transportation.
Oh, I know him.
Okay, you did. All right.
Yeah, he was in there.
He knows you. Everybody knows you.
Hey, save. You owe that man here.
Okay.
Looks like he's got one already.
Hello, everyone. Attention. Welcome to the Austin Startup Meetup, and I'm really happy that you all came here today. I know it's Thanksgiving week, so the attendance was a little less than what we used to regularly have. But thank you all for coming today. I do see a few old faces, regular faces, and then a few new faces as well. And here we do not discriminate. I mean, we love everyone, new faces, old faces. We like everyone to come here. So thanks for coming here. And for the new folks that are here for the first time, I'll just give a brief intro of what we do, and then we'll move on to the panel session. Austin Startup Meetup, we started this in February 2017, and that was the very first meetup I did after I took over from the previous presenter, and it was a grand success. There were like 2 people in the room that day, and one was me, and then the other one was someone who was randomly passing by and then just popped in to see what we were doing at the meetup. So that was the first meetup I had, but then but the amazing community here in Austin, they've been coming here in increasing numbers every month, and last 4 months we had close to 100, 120 RSVPs, and we've been getting more and more folks here, and I think for the next year we're going to move from this room to another room, because in the last few meetups we had like standing folks here. But the other thing is, I know it's Thanksgiving, so I want to start with a big thank you to all the folks that have been coming here and supporting this group. There's around close to, I think, 1,700 folks in the group right now, and it's been a real pleasure having you all here. So that's my Thanksgiving. It's done, right? So I can then leave the turkey there. We host this meetup usually in this room, Mobility X, but then as I said, we'll be moving away. And I'm Suman Polari, by the way. I have a startup on the side called Funnel AI with my co-founders, and also Shri that you see on the screen there is also another co-founder of that startup, and we actually met in this meetup. So I was hosting this meetup, he came here and we started talking, and then that's how we became co-founders. Hopefully we'll see, I would like to see more of those stories grow from this meetup, and you guys also can work with others and get great companies started here. And Lily Chow is the other co-host. She's there, and she's a great network person here. And if you want to know anyone in Austin that you don't have contacts with, just shoot an email to Lily, and she'll connect you with anyone in Austin. She's she's a superstar here. And the sponsors, we have Funnel AI, that's our startup, and then Lend 'em Out is a peer-to-peer rental company. You can rent anything that you have to others and make money, and rent things from others and save some money there. Cable Factory is the people that gave us the space for having this meetup. There's amazing community of entrepreneurs that they support here. There's thousands of meetups that happen here, and also they have co-working space and other membership opportunities that you want. If you want, you can go to capitalfactory.com and get more details. So the usual agenda is like we do some networking, then I do the intro, and then we go to the main session. We'll follow the same thing, but the timings are a little delayed. That's okay. We have plenty of time today. And before we move on to the main session, I would like to give a brief overview of resources for startups for people that are new to the startup community. If you want to know about incubators and accelerators anywhere in the world, you can go to F6S and AngelList, and you can find applications where you can submit the applications directly from there. You can see the deadlines and all those things. They're amazing resources to find out more about the incubators and accelerators throughout the world. And then closer to home, we have RealCo Accelerator in San Antonio. So if you're a B2B company, that's a great accelerator to be part of. That's where Funnel AI, we were also part of the Mass Challenge Accelerator, but we actually started our thing with the RealCo Accelerator, and they've been a great help for us to do our seed funding, and also they're helping us with the Series A and things like that. So great accelerators. That's in San Antonio. There's Alamo Angels and CTAN. Many people may have already heard about CTAN. They do a lot of office hours. I think every month they do 1 office hours. So if you want to pitch to them and get some feedback, that's a great angel network to go and talk to. Cable Factory, as you already know, they do a lot of 100K challenges every now and then. I think a few months back they did an AI challenge, then they did a diversity challenge, and then they did a mobility challenge and things like that. So they support companies from various sectors. So do check out Cable Factory, and you can also find those applications on AngelList. A quick round of resources. We already talked about AngelList. You can find jobs and opportunities on LinkedIn and connect with amazing folks like these startup founders here on LinkedIn. And also do check out the Facebook groups, Austin Digital Jobs and Tech Volunteers. You'll find a lot of either tech initiatives or, yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a plug for another group?
Sure, go ahead.
So I actually started, on top of those awesome communities, I started the Galaxy's largest Facebook group for solo founders. So if you're a solo founder, look at that in the Galaxy, because Han Solo, we've got a cool looking image of Han Solo as a solo founder. It's great.
Do you know the group name?
It's just literally solo founders.
Oh, solo
founders?
Oh, okay.
And it's got Han Solo on it.
Solo Founders FB group. Okay, I'll add this.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So.
There's also a mass challenge.
Yeah, I think you'll hear that there's like 2 mass challenge, or 3 actually, including me.
Yeah.
So 3 mass challenge cohort folks here, and then there's also Tarmac, Texas Accelerator. So,
Yes.
so do check out those as well. And again, these are all things that I'll share with the group anyway, so do check them out. And we also try to connect with, we do some kind of support. I'll try to help as much as I can, but I have kind of a busy schedule, so sometimes when people reach out to me, I may not be able to respond, responding as quickly as possible, but then there's also Lily that can help with some of the networking questions or anything like that. But we do some kind of support, like say if you need some testing help, we can, I mean, there's like 1,700 people in the group, so I can shoot out an email to the group saying, hey, there's a new member in our group that's developing an app that needs some help with testing. So, I mean, we can just spread the word that way. Or if you're looking for hiring, or if you want to join startups, there's also, we have some connections that we can provide as well. And we also have a member here that will when we go through the members, we can talk more about it. That's doing hackathon kind of session. We're planning that in January, but then there's also a job fair that's going to happen. I mean, I think Capital Factory's job fair is next December 4th, right? So December 4th, so we'll talk more about that. So if you want to team up with anyone, any startup founder, or join the startup community, company, let us know. We can find you connections there. And we are hiring, Funlay is hiring a full stack developer, so if you know any mid to senior level full stack developers, let us know. Funlay.co/jobs is where our thing is. And any startup related things that you need help with, let us know. We will try to help as much as we can. And next meetup we'll have on December 17th. And if you want to present your ideas or products or services, let us know. And then if you want us to cover any other topics like startup law, GDPR, contracts, venture capital, marketing, so on, let us know. We are doing a fundraising session next time in December. I know a lot of people were asking about a fundraising session. So we're going to bring some venture capitalists and angels to come and talk about fundraising. Before we jump on, there's one small thing that I want to do, which is I know the sessions that we have here, they're not always the greatest sessions for everyone that comes here, because everyone comes with a different ask or different purpose in mind, and we may not be able to satisfy everything. But one thing we can do is we can let you leave this room by making a new connection that you did not have before. And so I want to take 2 minutes. I want to give you all 2 minutes and just look to your right or left and find one person that you have not met prior to coming to this meetup, and then just introduce yourself, what you do, what they do, and then that's it. We can take those conversations later, but I just want to have you all make one new connection. That's it. So yeah, please do. 2 minutes.
We didn't do that?
Yeah, great to meet you. Glad to know somebody else who knows John.
Yeah, well, my impression is that he knows everybody.
Yeah, but he's like super approachable. Like, I was looking at his grant application he's putting together, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming how many words of love are on there, and then having to have them all make sense. And I was like, oh my gosh, super brilliant.
So how do you work with him? How did his grant?
So I am in talk with TX, and he was in the same cohort as me. Okay. Yeah. So we ended up getting along pretty well, and then I'm always here. He's coming more and more frequently, and then he got to the Capital Factory Accelerator, so now he's pretty much here all the time. And yeah, I mean he's been really helpful for just giving me some tactical bits of advice, and just making me able to think through things from being around the corner. So that's been really great. John's great. How about you?
So, yeah, I mean, I knew John Matt's challenge. He was always there. You were there a lot.
Was this the chase we were?
Yeah. He was like the mayor. I mean, he's always worked really hard.
Okay. Hello. 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 Okay. So hopefully you made a new connection, and I want you to take that conversations that you just had forward after this meetup and do more networking. And yeah, basically I just want you guys to build on these relationships that you make here and do great things. So if I can foster that, that's more than satisfying to me. So we'll take a quick survey, just a show of hands. How many of you already are working on a product or service, maybe becoming a startup? Okay. So how many of you already have your startups and are looking for maybe fundraising or things like that? Awesome. Is there any investors here? Awesome, yeah. So we have one investor here. Any? Okay, so we do a lot of other sessions, not just the panel discussions here. We do subject matter. We bring in subject matter experts and do like a learning session. We do networking sessions. We do office hour sessions and so on. And we also do panel sessions where we dive deeper into the startups and ask questions beyond what we hear in the pitches. So, how many of you would like to see a panel session like this again? Okay. How many would like office hours with mentors or advisors?
Is it free?
Okay. Free, yeah. Everything here is free, so we don't charge anything.
Usually the mentors upstairs they charge, right? So that's what
Yeah. That's
yeah.
That's okay. So yeah, it's free. And how many would like to have like a learning session, like a subject matter session, either a lawyer or a fundraiser, or a venture capitalist coming here and talking about a particular topic? Awesome. Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover before we move on to the main session today. And before we begin our discussion, please make a note of the orange section there. So the people that come here, they're not just the folks that sit here and talk about their things. There's also a lot of other people in the audience that have startups and are working on different things. So if you know, or if you come across any of the startups or ideas that you think are great, if you like them, just tweet about them, post about those folks or those companies on Facebook. I'll follow them on LinkedIn, AngelList. If you're a blogger, blog about them. If they have apps, like I think one of the presenters last time had an app, please download their app and give some feedback, because I know there's like 2 companies here that also have apps. So please do download their apps and give feedback, because that's for early stage companies and also in general, feedback is probably the biggest advantage a founder can get or a company can get. So I know we're all in the startup world, so it helps to help each other. We'd all grow and make it much more richer ecosystem for everyone, right? So, and if you like some of these products or services, please spread the word. Tell your friends, family, and whoever is in your network. Tell them, hey, I came across a wonderful company at so-and-so meetup. You don't even need to tell about the meetup. I mean, it's all about the companies and the founders that come here. Tell them that you came across a great company and ask them to try that out. So with that, I'll start going towards our panel. So we have 3 awesome founders here. They're working on exciting companies. First, we have Differgen, Dan from Differgen, and I know I'll let them explain more about their companies. But then they're working on a very exciting solution for leukemia cure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you explain more about it, because I'm not really. And there's some explanation there. And then we have Jetty from InCommon, and Jetty has an app that connects folks with addiction with folks that can help them come out of those addictions, right? So there's Jetty, and then we also have Jesse from Cloud9, and Cloud9 has an app that lets, I think that's more used by governments and healthcare institutions to make their process much more streamlined, right? Connect with their patients and make it much more streamlined. I know I know, I'll let JC also explain more about what they do. So before we start this, JC and Dan were part of the Mass Challenge program, and JC also, Cloud9 also was one of the winners in the Mass Challenge Awards, right?
Yes, we were.
So
Very grateful for that.
a great applause for them. Cloud9 and Differgen and Differgen and Cloud9 were part of Mass Challenge, and InCommon is part of the Tarmac Texas Accelerator, which, yeah, I mean, I'll let him explain more about the accelerator and how it's helping, because that's a new addition to Texas, I think. Sorry, Austin, I think, right?
I'll explain more.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'll start the round. I'll probably start with JC and come this way and ask them to talk about, who you are, what you do at your startup, and what your startup is. I know I butchered a little bit on all your startups. And yeah, we'll go to all three panelists and let them explain who they are, what they do, and what their startup is.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for having me, and thank you for putting this together, because
No problem.
this is a great asset to our community. It's a community, and we need resources like this, so thank you.
Appreciate that.
So I'm JC Adams, founder of this company called Cloud9. We're in the mental health care space, and the reason I got into this, I've been in a lot of different industries before, always startups, but I did this because I lost a friend to mental illness. That's the fourth friend I lost, 3 family members. It seems like I've always been trying to help people get access to mental health care, and it's really tough. 20% of Americans have a diagnosable mental illness each year, but only 8% receive services. And the reason behind that is we don't have enough providers. 70+% of United States communities report a severe shortage of mental health clinicians, psychiatrists, counselors, therapists. And the reimbursements just haven't been there. So there's this real inability to serve the need, and we're building a tool that can help amplify the providers we have, amplify their ability to deliver more care, more efficiently to where people are, in their homes, using modern communication technologies, data sharing, and our approach from an architectural standpoint is we're building a communication and data sharing platform where these providers can communicate more efficiently, not only with their patient population, but also collaborate and connect other types of care teams around the patient. So multiple types of care teams can care for a patient, including your primary care provider, your substance use and addiction team, like what Jetty was working on here. We can connect case management services, friends and family, and what we've found recent success with is connecting first responders, police, and EMS, because a little known fact is that 25% of all 911 calls are actually someone having a mental health crisis, and in excess of 25% of all fatal shootings of a police officer shooting someone, it's someone who's actually mentally ill. And what we do is we send those people to a medical ER, or we send them to jail, and then they tie up the court system. And the problem with that is nobody gets mental health care services in the ER, the jails, or the courts, and we turn them out, and they come right back, and we spend $2.7 billion a year in Texas on that. And it's just this stupid waste of money. $2.7 billion we waste sending people who are mentally ill to the wrong place. So yeah, that's what we just did. That's kind of interesting. We connected mental health care teams to first responders. Harris County Sheriff, matter of fact, down in Houston, and we showed a 22% reduction in mental crises hitting their ERs and jails, and it resulted in 630% return on investment to the county, and so the numbers will help us treat people better in the long run.
Awesome.
So that's what we're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for having us here. I feel really just grateful to be here, and for y'all coming out during the middle of what I'm sure is a very busy Thanksgiving work week, as well as leading up to seeing families who may have stuff going on with their health. So Thank you guys for all taking the time to come out here. So I am the founder and CEO of In Common, and what we provide is a digital support community that helps people in mental distress, particularly with stigmatized issues like addiction, to find a listening ear. Why we're doing that is, I had a firsthand experience with addiction. My first rock bottom was in college, and that was, that led to me dropping out, and it was my first rock bottom, but not my last. And so, that led me to realizing that one of the core problems of addiction is that it is easier to relapse than it is to find help. And anybody who knows somebody who's been through that can certainly attest to that. But I can kind of break that down into 3 sub-problems that are particularly telling. So one, this is to illustrate the fact that there's so many practical and emotional hurdles to finding help. Well, one, there is a small, narrow window of time when a person with addiction problems, not an addict, but a person with addiction problems is willing to reach out for help, and when intervention is possible. Most just simply can't find help for these practical or emotional reasons before it's too late. Second is that there is no clear or straightforward way to properly research or connect with options in the treatment space or counseling space. Anybody who's gone through the maze of psychology today could probably attest to that, or Google. Third is, sustaining recovery is particularly hard because, no single support group, support member, counseling person can provide round-the-clock support for all the demands that come up any time of day. Addiction doesn't have business hours, so all that leads to the situation where, look, I just need somebody right now, and especially in a tech-fueled landscape, it's faster than ever before to fuel that addiction. So I built this platform that lets you literally just press a button and find community support when you need it. I could talk a little bit more about how that works, but I can certainly save that for questions later. A little bit about what I've done around this. I started with not a medical degree or any of the let's say the credentials that one might normally expect. So happy to talk about just the stuff that we went through in the early stages. I've certainly faced a lot of rejections in applying to all the different accelerators. Been rejected by nearly all of them. Finals for half of them, and now we're in Tarmac, which is an accelerator for social impact startups. And I just came back from a global pitch competition in Hong Kong. I've done pitch competitions in Austin, New York, won one in Silicon Valley, and I'm happy to talk about that as well. So it's a little bit about me. Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. So I'm left, and thank you, Simon, for creating this community, and everybody for being a part of it with me. I think this is just really great, and I'm real happy to be here next to JC and Jetty. So what they're doing is applying technology to help people, and that's what really brought me into the path of entrepreneurship and working with companies, and that's what Differgen, our company, is all about as well. My interests and technical background are more in the biology and biotechnology and engineering side, and that led me to connect with the scientific co-founder, who he's an accomplished professor. He's emeritus now, he's retired, and he spent his whole career figuring out this one specific pathway in cancer that seems to have a huge impact on patient survival. And he spun that out, and together we've shown some proof of concept that has real potential to work for acute myeloid leukemia. And that's an area where like what you guys are working on, it needs some help. for a better solution. So right now, only 25% of people with AML live 5 years. So there's really a need for better therapeutics. And we're hoping that through entrepreneurship, through inventing and through building companies, we'll be able to bring a better therapeutic option for these patients. And that's kind of what we're all about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think we kind of touched a little bit on some of the motivations behind starting these companies. So I know you said that it was your partner that was researching all these things and wanted to find a new way, and you joined in. Was there any other motivation other than, was it like a personal motivation? Was there some loved one or some family member that had an impact on this?
I mean, I think everybody in this room is at least one step removed from somebody who's battled cancer, or maybe lost the battle of cancer, and I'm no different. And I think a lot of my friends know that, and people I work with know that I just have like a soft spot. I'm really passionate about using technology to solve problems, and specifically the development of new drugs. I think saving someone's life is huge, right? Yeah. And people knew this about me, and I'm just like a generally helpful person, and I probably have like the most experience with patents and getting patents out of universities, and that's kind of exactly what the scientific co-founder needed at the time, and that's what brought us together, and since then we've been sort of a team.
Yeah, awesome. And so was your background, so I mean, I think you said your background was like in biology, and so is that directly translating to what you do in the startup in Differgen, or is that, I know you also said your expertise is getting patents and working with universities to get those patents applied, right?
Yeah, so it's amazing, what PhDs go through. There might, I'm sure some of you guys have shared that experience, and I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole. I know a lot about the science, enough to like have a conversation over beers about it, but not really enough to invent things. So I'm kind of a bridge, and I also know a lot about patents and licensing and royalty streams and things like that from just from working in that area, in that specific area, for more than 5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think one takeaway from that point is I know a lot of people that think when they look at startup founders think that, hey, these folks have a certain background in that industry that they're actually doing that or building that company in, and I don't think that's always true, because a lot of times they chance upon what they're building right now just through either working with friends or working with someone that wanted to do this idea and things like that. So none of the founders or none of the or not every startup founder is actually an expert in the field that they're building their products in, right? So, for example, in the medical field, fighting leukemia. Yeah. I mean, even though you're not the expert in the leukemia field, I think you still became a founder that's working towards fighting leukemia is through your exposure to the other people that you work with, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And Judy, I know. I kind of know your story because we have been meeting on and off for a couple of years now, and I mean, if anyone wants to know, like from without any knowledge of building apps to becoming to coming to a point where you have an app on the App Store and it's actually become a platform. I think Judy
actually saves some people's lives, believe it or not.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I know that Judy is not a product person, or was not a product person when we met last time. I think you were using off-the-shelf technologies to build the apps, right? Like Bubble IS and things like that.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So, I've been around entrepreneurs my whole life. My parents started this tour business, so that was always my normal. Started various businesses in high school. Eventually, started this Airbnb business that brought in like $500,000, and that wasn't like a true real startup. I've had friends around like tech startups, and certainly seen their journeys. So I've been around that, but there was always this sense of like, what do I want to sink my teeth into? And when I hit this, with this addiction problem and realized I could do something about it, I just had a lot of conversations around, okay, well, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And and it always seemed like there was such a big gap between where I was and where all these people that you read about in TechCrunch are. And I just kept following leads of one where people were telling me like where the hurdles were, and two, just anything new and interesting. And that's how I came across Bubble. It's this visual programming language that likes to put together an app just by dragging and dropping elements and making the syntax work on the back end. It's all-in-one kind of environment. It lets you rapidly prototype and get out a progressive web app. And I also found out later that it's not particularly straightforward, but you can get that web app into the App Store. So you just teach yourself all the things that you can, and with enough Googling and asking around, I mean, I'm living proof that you can really teach yourself whatever you need to know. I had some some product background as well, but just really being able to crystallize that around focus that around a particular application, really crystallize that.
Yeah, and I think that's really inspiring, because a lot of people that do not have tech backgrounds, kind of when they want to start tech companies, or maybe they have an idea of an app that's going to be game changing, but they always kind of see a stumbling block that hey, I don't know this technology, I mean, I need someone to help me build this app, and things like that. When people, I mean, there's also folks like that come to this meetup and look for, hey, I want a tech co-founder, or I want a tech person to build this app for me. It's not always the case that, because not every app needs to be in a super polished way, like how Airbnb's app looks like right now, or how Uber app looks like right now. I mean, it's like there's always a lot of off-the-shelf components that you can use, and put together pieces of those and build something that's at least 20% functional to get it out, and then get a rapid feedback cycle coming in, so that way you can iterate on it. And as you go through that process, I think there's always a lot of advisors that see your progress, and they will definitely connect you with the right folks if you're building something that's really
I'll say this much: anybody who thinks that there's so much of a gap between now and where they want to be should take a look at early screenshots of the Facebook.com, and especially LinkedIn. LinkedIn, oh God, LinkedIn's early page is awful.
It's said often, if you are happy with the first release of your product and you think it looks good, you waited way too late to release it.
I love that quote.
It has to be ugly, fast and cheap and out the door.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, because a lot of people try refining things. I mean, even product people that already know how to build apps and build the foundation of what they want to focus on. They kind of keep iterating on minute details that really don't matter in the big scale of things. I mean,
right.
all you need is first customers and people using your thing to even be acceptable in the marketplace, and otherwise you're just wasting time, right?
Yep.
So,
I can definitely speak to that. Yeah, I mean, my first sketches of what this looked like was literally just stuff on like MS Paint, and it had like 7 or 8 different buttons on there, and I showed it to some of my friends. Zach Cook, wherever you are out there on the internet, he's just like, dude, you've got too many buttons, just make it 2, right? And so it's conversations like that lets the next step. And then I found out like there's Flinto. It lets you do some visual diagramming and prototyping, and then from there, once I learned that, I learned Bubble, and I literally, I mean, for anybody who thinks that like, oh, he's just a genius or whatever, I mean, I like to think I work hard. Once I know there's an opportunity out there, I got a C in the only CS class that I took at UT. So, but once I knew I could do something with Bubble, I mean, I just literally locked myself in a room for a week and taught myself everything I needed to know. So, that's the stuff that like sort of tends to get glossed over, but anybody can really do it. You just got to care enough, and especially in the health tech field, you really got to care about the problem.
Yeah. So that's, I think when you talked about your motivation to start Cloud9 and work on this problem, you kind of touched upon a personal experience that kind of pushed you towards this, right? So was it like when you thought about the problem, did you jump in and start doing what Cloud9 looks like right now, or how did you go about start working on Cloud9? Did you think I need to get more user feedback before I even start about it, or do I even have a problem at hand that's useful to solve, or how did you go about starting to build a company around the experience that you had?
Yeah, so actually, this starts as a previous venture. The first time I decided I wanted to do something about this was before Cloud9 had started, and what I did is I found one of the smartest people I knew in the industry, a gentleman who started one of the first telehealth companies ever back in the 90s around radiology. And he was talking about doing something for counseling and helping people as well. He had an interest, and we both shared a common friend that we had lost to mental illness. So we started this early version of the product, and it was very basic. That company ended up having some issues with the leadership team. I was not in control of the cap table or able to make majority decisions on that product. So that ended up getting shut down, and it really was painful to me because I seemed to care more than a lot of the other people that were there. They were doing it as a hobby. A lot of these people were very, very wealthy and didn't really need to make it happen as much as I did at the time. So yeah, that's how I first got started. But what I wanted to, out of that, in that process, I learned what I really wanted to build. And that was something that brought a lot more technology to the solution, but not too much. Not bleeding edge or leading edge, but just enough of what the market is ready for today. So that previous startup allowed me to have insight into what exactly is product market fit for the solution, and then also the timing aspect. You mentioned companies like Airbnb, Uber, Facebook. The number one factor for success for startups, if you look at the data, there's a great TED Talk about this, it's timing. It's not the team. Team's important. Investors look at the team. Having plenty of access to capital, being in the Valley or New York or a bigger market, certainly is easier than trying to raise money in Texas. Yeah. But it's the timing is the number one factor for success. So what I saw in my previous venture is that we didn't do what we were doing today, which is clinical care, but we saw that the laws were changing for remote care, telemedicine, the ability to have interoperable data, and that's when I was able to launch Cloud9. And quite frankly, Cloud9, the first design of it, had three main components: assess, talk, and track. And ever since then, I've only changed one of the names. It's still test, talk, and track. So from the beginning to where it was today, yeah, we nailed it in terms of what the market had told us they wanted. So that helped. Having a previous failure helped this company be a better success.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of people, when they look at all these successful companies, they think that that was the first thing that they worked on. When they hear about the success stories of founders that raised so many millions of dollars or sold their companies for X number of billions, I mean, they think that they started with that one particular product and then that became the grand success. But then there's always those previous versions. Either it's a completely different product or a previous version of that product in some fashion that most of the people will be working on, and then gradually either things don't work out and previous projects fail, and then they started working on this great new thing, or maybe things have changed a bit in the way that the market receives the thing that they're working on, and they pivoted from that initial point to what they are now, and that's what brought them success. So I think those are the minute things that people kind of miss, because when we look at all these crunch views and all these stories, when we look at all the Uber raised $2 billion or $3 billion, we think that those founders started from the great shiny version of Uber that is now there, and then iterated from that, which is not always the case, right? So that's, and that also is kind of how we at Funnel AI also started with, or came up with what we're doing now. We had a completely different,
Oops, no worries.
So yeah, we had a completely different version of the product that my co-founder was working on, and he presented to a lot of advisors and got feedback from them. And finally, when he went to the Real Coast accelerator that we were talking about, they looked at it, and one of the advisors said, hey, this looks like a good concept that you're working on, but this one piece seems to have much more value than the whole piece. And then that became our product now. So it's our product at initial stages in the previous version was just like 1% of the whole product we were working on at that time. But then we just took out that one piece, and that's what we, I mean, everyone likes now. I mean, our investors like and our customers like. And I mean, it's just that you have to get feedback. You have to talk to like thousands of different, I mean, may not be thousands, but at least hundreds of people to understand like what is that in your product, or that your focus should be on. And that's awesome. And I think we went through the introductions, but I kind of missed to ask about the team. So we'll start from before Jen. So I know you said you have a co-founder, right?
Yeah.
So is there, any other people in the team other than your co-founder? Or?
Yeah, so we're a virtual company where the members, committed members are my co-founder, who's the scientific inventor, and he's based in Philadelphia, and myself, I'm more of the business lead. I'm the president and entrepreneur in residence. But drug development, it goes in bits and pieces, and it takes people with very specific knowledge. So we have a team of consultants, really, that range from animal experts at MD Anderson for animal models, to a manufacturing expert in Maryland, to a regulatory expert in Southern California. And we met all of those people through recommendations and like second degree introductions, basically.
So that's awesome, because I wanted to ask you like how you met those folks, because a lot of times when we want to partner with someone or hire new people in the team, we get stuck at, hey, where do I get some rock star folks on my team? And it's mostly through introductions and things like that, right?
Yeah, so like, for example, with the MD Anderson connection, I asked somebody I work with on a day-to-day basis, a professor, who's the best person that you know of? And they sent me there. And then for our regulatory expert, what I did was I reached out to the person with that title at a major pharmaceutical company at Janssen.
Was it like a cold email or cold call?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. And obviously, like, we couldn't afford that person, but they weren't for sale anyway. They had a job at a pharmaceutical company, but they have the credibility and the knowledge to know, say, oh, you should talk to this person.
Got it.
And it turns out that that person's doing really well for us. So
awesome.
that like trick worked for us, I would say.
Awesome. So most of your consultants were from personal recommendations and like others, maybe secondhand recommendations, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Awesome. So Jenny, do you have any other people in your team right now?
So that's kind of the joke, is every time I apply for Y Combinator, it's like, so how did the team meet? And I just copy Drew Houston's line. There's a joke in here somewhere. So I'm a solo founder. I've gotten by with a lot of help. Happy to talk a bit more about that if you'd like. like.
So is it like contractors or maybe friends helping you, or how is that?
Yeah, so it's a lot of friends who've had specialized areas of knowledge. Certainly, I started out with just knowing about certain rock star people in certain fields, or like certain people I should talk to, that I just sought them out either through like my own networks or reaching out to them cold emailing. My adventure to connect with Dan Graham was particularly interesting, but yeah, and then once I finally got to the point, building on top of failure and failure, or confusing, mentor whiplash or advice whiplash, finally got myself to a position where we had figured out enough things and got into Tarmac Texas Accelerator, which gives you 9 months of free co-working at Capital Factory on top of all these other things, and it's completely free. I got access to Capital Factory Network, who I already had access to some of them, but now you have this completely open fridge access, right? And I think I took like 25 mentor sessions in the first month, and it was just on top of like all these other things. But yeah, it was just a constant cycle of finding help wherever I could, and then just cobbling together advice and hotspots, in certain hotspots, as well as listening to serendipitous or unexpected advice that people, uniquely were offering, and reading a lot. I brought just a few books from the library. Huge fan of reading and Googling. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about like tactical stuff, but that's sort of my journey.
Awesome. So at this point, you're still working solo in the team and still seeking advice wherever needed, or do you, at this point?
So I would say that my days as a solo founder are quickly becoming numbered. Okay. And in the solo founder group, we have a Teams thread that's like, the goal is to make you an ex-solo founder, right? So, yeah, so I've got some controversial opinions. I think that one of them is that you don't necessarily need to rush into a founding partnership. I think that, there's two sides of this coin, right? Like, one side is that everybody says, oh yeah, 9 out of 10 startups is going to fail, and and it's because of solo founders. There's no shortage of accelerators that are going to tell you, get a team. I mean, certainly they have their own vested interest in telling you that to de-risk the company itself. But something else that people don't tell you is that the number one reason why why startups fall apart is because of the team, or because of lack of product market fit, which leads to the team falling apart. So I come from a background where I've seen a lot of friends and family, break apart really great businesses and friendships, and so that's really important to me to be able to get that part down. I do have some ways of reaching out to folks, certainly getting introduced through people who are well networked at the different accelerators, the different angel groups, different places here and there, looking for specific key responsibilities is something that I've been starting to do. One really cool tactic that I picked up recently is just sort of stair-stepping or like laddering people into working with you. Like, nobody's going to have the resources right away unless you have a rich uncle or you are the rich uncle to be able to right away hire that like rock star clinical director, right? But you can at least excite them with the premise and opportunity of your idea. And you can get those people, if it's the right people and the right fit, to work with you for pennies on the dollar. And maybe it's just like 5 hours out of the month on an advisory basis, but then you just sort of ramp that up. And I mean, you're sort of testing for fit and cultural fit as well, more than anything. So I mean, it doesn't have to be a complete jump into full-on founding partnership, and certainly vesting tables, vesting cliffs, or vesting periods and cliffs are useful as well to know about that. I wish I had known about it at the beginning. But yeah, there's lots of ways around into it, but I mean, I guess I would take an unorthodox angle into the team conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Jesse, I know you have a co-founder, Dr. Liz Strong. So is it just 2 co-founders, or do you have more people on your team, or I mean, any other co-founder, or is just 2 of you right now?
Yeah, it's 2 of us, but you can. I'm with Jetty on this. Yeah, there's a lot of discrimination against solo founders.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, early stage, it can be to your advantage, depending on your business, depending on your company, to start by yourself until you figure some things out. And I started solo. Yeah. So yeah, congratulations, by the way. It's hard to have conflict with yourself. If you have co-founder conflict with yourself, you may have a multiple personality disorder. So I have an app for that. But yeah, no, being that I'm a tech and business guy, at some point in enterprise sales into the healthcare space, selling mental health care solutions to these enterprises and to even government, like health and human services, cities and counties, it really does help to have a clinical co-founder. And I was very, very fortunate to have met my co-founder, Dr. Elizabeth Trong, just kind of haphazardly. It wasn't like we were looking for each other. We just met at South by Southwest, an event, and it was a good time for her to step out of clinical practice as a psychiatrist, and she had a real interest in being more and helping more people and becoming what's sometimes known as a doctorpreneur. And she turned out to be a great one. I mean, she's very tech savvy, and she now guides our tech team. Whereas the first version of the product I built, I was kind of leading a tech team of what I thought the market was telling me. But now to have a psychiatrist help guide a tech team on building something that actual clinicians and patients are going to use and get more clinical value out of, that's key. That's key. And then yeah, people listen to her more. So, yeah, it's she and I, and then we have a great tech team. But yeah, it's hard to bring in founders. It's hard to hire good talent in a lot of markets around the world. And Austin, it's difficult to find talent across the board in a lot of different ways here. We've been fortunate on the tech side to find tech talent at Cloud9, but it's been real rough on the business development side as well, finding really good people to help with sales and whatnot. Uh-oh. Alert time.
Is Donald Trump messaging us?
No, it's not Trump.
It's Andrew.
No, it's not.
It's not an actual emergency.
They're just testing.
So when you said you hired talent, I mean, were there certain avenues where you looked at for hiring the talent that you required? Like, did you go to job fairs, or did you just put up I mean, did you just ask people around to see if they knew someone that could be a good fit for your team, or how did you approach?
Sure. I went to the center of gravity, Capital Factory.
Oh, wow.
Because it's the center of gravity. Everybody, awesome. It's the community, right? Like, I couldn't find tech talent. I mean, WeWork's a great co-working space. Mm-hmm. It's not the community, right?
Yeah.
And you can say that about a lot of different co-working models, but there's a lot of great co-working spaces in and around Austin and other cities that do build communities other than Capital Factory. It just fit for us. We're also part of other accelerators that are in healthcare, but I like being around an ecosystem like Capital Factory, which has companies from all over, not just people in healthcare like the 3 of us on the stage here. It's, they have companies from all over, and you get that cross-pollination of being able to learn from one another. So, I can learn from blockchain, AI, VR companies and across the board, and then they can learn what we're dealing with in healthcare, et cetera. So it's good.
Awesome. So I know in healthcare.
Can I actually jump off of that, because that's a really great point. Yeah. It was brought up to me recently that there's 3 key. Well. This is not an exhaustive list, but there are 3 key responsibilities that we have as entrepreneurs. One is to align resources and people together towards our vision. Two is what you kind of just said, to cross-pollinate ideas. And I mean, a lot of the problems that we're trying to solve, they've been solved. They're just hiding in different forms. And so our job is to really seek those out. And three is to continue to build the vision and excite people. So yeah, but being able to like cross-pollinate across, like not just medicine, right? Like if we wanted to do that, we could just go to TMCX, right?
Yeah.
Or Health Wildcatters, and you know, but it's just listening to how did you solve this problem in this parallel problem in this like seemingly completely unrelated area, and listening to the series of steps like assumptions, talking to people that like leads to unlocking commercial opportunity for our own ventures.
Exactly. Well put.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, I know in healthcare, one of the biggest pain points that people talk about is the regulatory compliance, and then there's a host of things that healthcare companies have to comply with. There's the state regulations, there's federal regulations, and all these things. So, does any of your startups have issues, or I mean, when I say issues, did you have a tough time meeting those regulatory requirements for your kind of thing? I know in your case you have to comply with maybe HIPAA and other things because you transmit patient data and things like that, right?
Yeah, HIPAA is our primary regulatory issue that we have to adhere to. It's something we take very seriously, especially with being in the mental health care space. We really want to protect people's data in terms of their mental health care. So absolutely, for us, HIPAA. Maybe, yeah, and then we're fortunate. Dan, you deal with a lot more than that in your space, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we were lucky. HIPAA's tough, but it gets worse. It's tougher.
Yeah.
So do you have to go through a lot of these regulatory processes to?
Yeah. So in the drug development space, it's all about the regulatory pathway, and it's a pretty big mountain to climb. So just to get started to test in humans is actually a major milestone accomplishment, and drug development companies are known to be counted as a win and exit even midway through clinical trials if you've made it that far where you could just test it in patients to see if it works. So to take something that started in mouse models in a university setting and then put it on the path towards human testing, that's where our main focus is right now, and it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars to get into humans. Then once it gets into humans, it may or may not work. So it's but it's definitely a necessary thing, and it's in the U.S. it's the FDA, and it's a major point of focus for drug development companies and medical device companies as well. Yeah.
So I mean, from your experience dealing with those kind of regulations or regulatory bodies, I mean, is there? I mean, for early stage founders that are just coming into the healthcare space that may run into those same kind of processes. Do you have any pointers on how to best? I mean, is it like?
Yeah. So there's non-dilutive grants that understand that this process costs a lot of money, and that some people ask like, oh, like what are your sales? Like, how does your prototype? And in drug development, it's not really that sort of trajectory, right? You have one candidate, and then you have 7 years of clinical trials. If you make it that far. And there's a lot of non-dilutive funds and other funding agencies that are very supportive, like CPRIT, if you guys have ever heard of them. That's a great resource in Texas. And then the National Cancer Institute is one of the major contributors of SBIR grants. We've benefited from them. And there's other like regional groups that can kind of help get you to those early inflection points before you have a sales forecast. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's sort of knowledge I think would really help maybe early stage founders in that space to kind of know, because I think that's kind of the biggest, you know, thing that stops them from, hey, I want to get into this space, I want to build these things, but I need to, focus on all these things as well as developing what I want to do. And that kind of, you know, pushes them back a little bit, and maybe a lot of them drop out before even getting past the stage of, you know, I have this idea, I want to develop this idea, right? So, so awesome. Do you have any sort of regulations or regulatory requirements for InCommon?
So I told JC before, the answer is not really, but kind of. Half joking. Yeah, I would say that our biggest challenge is HIPAA, and to be clear, you know, I focus much more, my startup focuses much more on the community aspect rather than providing like the clinical side of things, and so that doesn't touch us nearly as much. The trick to that is it still gives us a standard for accountability and practice that we definitely want to skate towards, and especially with like GDPR, that you know that certainly touches us as well. But yeah, right now we're for the stage that we're at, we are focused on at least safeguarding information and using those practices as just things to skate towards.
Got it. So one thing about, I think this may be a general question. I know I'm digressing a little bit here. This may be a general question, not just for healthcare companies, because you two talked about yours as platforms, right? Because you have like two-way, you know, you have providers on one side and then patients or the end users on the other side. And you have like another two-way platform wherein you have addicts that want help on one side and those that want to help them on the other side, right? So for a lot of platforms, the biggest problem is the chicken and egg problem, wherein do I need to have enough providers first to get the end users interested, or should I go after end users to get the providers interested? And it's always a battle between which one I need to focus. And how do you guys solve that problem in the sense like, how do you guys get those two pieces together?
So I can go ahead and I love this question, and which is why I brought those books. So I mentioned I'm a huge reader, and so I brought 6. It was hard to choose, but the 2 in the middle, the books on the right are much more on the pure entrepreneurship side, and then the ones on the left are, let's say, miscellaneous. But the 2 in the middle, they're Platform Scale and Platform Revolution. I look at those almost as like a playbook, as like a Bible. It's written by some guys from out of MIT. It really breaks down the mechanics. And to answer your question sort of head on, this will take you about a third of the way into the book to get to. But what you do is you locate the source of the supply and the interaction for the value that's being created, and then you do everything in your power that you can to facilitate transactions between that demand and the supply, and you try to remove as much friction as you can so that it's easy and incentivized for the demand to add value to your platform. That's all that the platforms are really doing, is trying to efficiently facilitate value exchange between those two. And it gets a little trickier with a multi-sided platform, but the mechanics are mostly the same.
Mm-hmm. So in your case, did you find people that wanted help first to ask them about questions, and then get them on the platform to do some kind of you know, small-scale testing, user testing in a way? Putting yourself on the other side of the equation where you were helping those folks, or how did you get that process started on your platform?
At the risk of underselling myself, I don't think I necessarily went about it that way. I will say that I did encourage some things over time, and some things I baked into the product to try to encourage that. We have some gamification, we have some extra tools that encourage people to give help. You know, you get badges, bonus points, there's in-app karma, you know, and we're building out some more tools to just health people, it's very interesting. Usually we get a ratio of about like 1 or 2 get help to 5 give help. I think it's just people sort of, I mean, we're hardwired to be tribal, right? So I think people naturally want to give that help. And so it then just becomes my job to talk through, like, how can I make your life easier? What sort of like friction points, and I wouldn't call that an actual conversation with them, but you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, what sort of friction points are you encountering? How can I make your life easier? What gets you excited about giving help, and doing everything that I can to find like the top 1, 2, or 3 drivers of that and baking it into the product in a way that's easy to engage with. I look at Tinder a lot as as a use case. I mean, say what you want about the you know what they do, but they've just taken a really complicated problem, made it like stupidly simple. And that's how I look at facilitating that exchange, you know, and encouraging helpers.
So on your plan, oh sorry.
I have a question on the same topic. So how do people find InCommon? Like, I mean, how do you go about marketing your app?
Yeah, so right now it's all word of mouth or just App Store search. I mean, I haven't
thousands
really...
of apps on the App Store search. I mean, like
Yeah.
InCommon, how does people who wants to give help know that there is something called InCommon out there?
So usually they do App Store search and they're like addiction help, and they just find their way on. And there's also, I mean, we've been talking to therapists to recommend this to their patients. We've been talking to various Facebook support groups for addiction. And then some people just hear about it and they get excited, or some people tell a friend, and you know, that's how the word of mouth starts. I could break down some more of the tactics that I know about, but as far as like what we've done so far, it's basically just been that word of mouth and people finding out that way.
I would imagine you've been able to convert some of the people who came there looking for help to become helpers. That's one of the best avenues, right?
Yeah.
People who understand the problem
Yeah.
firsthand and be able to get a lot of value in helping other people.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'd be curious to know what kind of like insights y'all have as you're building your own platforms. But yeah, I think that there's some social status that people get out of helping others, and you know, I like to sort of frame it as, you know, you can buy a lot of things, but you can't buy the feeling that you get from like genuinely helping somebody and making a difference. Like when I got on this phone interview with one of my community members, and she just like let it all out, and you know, she's like, I would not be standing here talking to you on the phone if not for your, you know, like for InCommon. Like, you saved my life. Like that feeling that you get, incredible. And it's just, how do we sort of take that and systematize the process of getting there? And you know, you're right. A lot of people sign up initially like, oh, this is something that helps me, but you sort of discover that it also helps them to give help and have that conversation. A lot of times in that process, they end up sort of subconsciously instructing themselves the answers to their own personal problems.
So, JC, I think in your case, on one side you have the providers which are like more institutionalized, like healthcare institutions or governments, right? And on the other side you have patients. So is your platform driven by more engaging with the institution side of the market, where you go and you know, talk to the governments and healthcare providers to sign up on your platform, and thereby you get a captive audience of what they of their customers, or how does it work on your platform?
Yeah, that's how it works now, but not in the beginning. When I first launched Cloud9, we built this. We wanted to deliver a clinical solution. I got my initial traction by making it available to mental health care professionals that were licensed here in Texas, and it was a marketplace solution. So I would make it available to psychiatrists, counselors, therapists here, and they could use it with their existing patients, and I would try to find them more patients, and you're trying to balance two marketplaces. That's challenging. Challenge number 2, we designed it as a clinical care platform, and that's best sold in a clinical environment, which is a very big healthcare ecosystem that, in which you need to design something for that healthcare providing organization. Number 3 is customer acquisition cost on the consumer side is extremely high. To get consumers to come to your product, you have to buy them. And the same for the providers. Customer service costs. So I ran into a lot of problems. I always wanted to serve enterprises, so we pivoted, and now the hospitals, the health systems, the community health centers, these government agencies, we can actually help more people by building the platform around their existing model of caring for people. We wrap this tool around the way that they care for people in face-to-face, brick and mortar. We just now amplify their ability to be everywhere at once. And that's how we help more people, is by building a tool for providers.
Awesome.
And it's also, business-wise, it's easier to launch that way.
You wanted to say something?
Can I go back and answer your question a little more? So, what I described to you is what we've worked up to this point, and now we're sort of moving into a B2B, if you will, business model, whereby we are licensing our product to universities, health alliances, eventually insurance groups, and so like how do we find those people? So we're beginning by targeting the universities who have this substance abuse and addictions problem with their students, who for us that's a captive audience who very prime candidates to want to use a technology like an app, want to begin that conversation, feel that that intimidation, and it's just been a journey of matching the business model in different areas that way. But that's currently what we're working on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you stated you're getting to the D&B model. That's when you consider a sales force. So do you have any cold calling experience? Because how are you getting these companies to even listen to you, right? The number one reason startups fail is obscurity, not because of a team or a lack of capital. No one knows who you are. So how are you getting these companies or universities to even know who you are? And listen to you?
So have you read the Paul Graham essay, Do Things That Don't Scale?
Paul Graham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've read Do Things That Don't Scale.
Correct.
Okay, so my Do Things That Don't Scale tactic is simply to walk into the university's offices and ask for a meeting. And that's what worked for Stanford and UC Berkeley and University of Colorado and NYU.
I'm talking about you.
Sure.
I have worked for a sales experience and cold calling experience, and it's not that easy.
Sure. Okay. I did cold call a few of the universities in Texas the other day, so I don't have that much experience. I might not be the most qualified to talk about that. Was there a more specific question you had?
No, it was just how, because you stated earlier, the number one reason companies fail is due to the team, and that's false. It's obscure. No one knows who you are. Money follows attention. Once I have your attention, I can now generate money from you, whether it's a product or service. So you have to first get my attention in order to get money from you. So I'm asking, how are you going to get their attention in the first place in order to generate capital so then raise money from investors?
Sure. So, yeah?
You can answer that.
On
it though regarding.
Sure. Yeah. So my playbook right now is to find the person who's most likely in the university or the organization to care a lot about the problem and become a advocate or a champion. In this case, it would be the Centers for Student Recovery or somebody within the clinical, the mental health counseling center, or in one recent case, a dean, and somebody who really cares about certain drivers. What we're latching onto right now is the retention issue at universities, and finding whoever is going to care the most about that, and then have them introduce us to the real decision maker within the organization. That's how we're getting the attention.
Also like a referral. Okay.
Yep.
So I understand this. Are you building communities supporting other communities by bringing on ex-addicts? Are you bringing on professionals to support those that are
Yes,
looking for?
and yes.
You're bringing all those things, kind of bringing together. Are you using text? Are you using a telemedicine live platform? Or are you using
So right now, I would call it like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 plan. Phase 1 is strictly peer-to-peer. Phase 2 is sort of adding on, let's say, trained or certified peers who are not yet licensed professionals, and they can help take on, let's say, more special cases. And then stage 3 is licensed professionals and community resources, so that it really does become the sort of like all-around marketplace for wherever people are. And we're building out some systems that can help like triage like wherever it is you are and help route you to whoever's like appropriate for your particular situation. Really, the first problem that we're working on right now with that peer-to-peer is even giving you somebody who's had a shared experience where you can talk to them and relate, and then at least get past that point of isolation, not doing something about it, and finally having that conversation and now doing something about it and being willing to seek help.
And like directing them to centers in their area for help?
Yeah, so centers for treatment or for meetings or for counselors. Yeah.
You identify those areas, there's those centers, you're giving it to these folks that are coming onto your app. Is that what's going on there?
Yeah.
So the people who are giving help, they are centers, they are the professionals, or they are...
Right now they're peers.
Right now they're, right, so right now it's peer-to-peer, phase 1, and then phase 2 and phase 3.
So my question's for Jenny, maybe one of the other guys too. Did you go to a couple accelerators or one main one? Because I was curious about your experience in the accelerator program.
I'm going to that question next.
Oh,
So yeah, so it's a good segue into that.
Yeah.
So I know we have, I mean, all three of you have gone through accelerators, right? So we'll probably go through each of them and let them talk about their accelerator experience, and then maybe we can ask questions about that. So I know you were in Mass Challenge, so how was Mass Challenge for you?
So we've done 2 accelerators. Mass Challenge was our second.
Okay.
Mass Challenge is great. It's an equity-free accelerator that does nothing but give, and it's a great opportunity. You guys can talk about that, and probably the best thing about Mass Challenge is the community and the network, and just the opportunity and space for you to put the work in. We're also a part of an equity-based accelerator that's in Philadelphia. It's called the Phase 1 Ventures program.
The phase 1?
Phase 1 Ventures program, and it's more of a specialized accelerator for companies that utilize a technology, an invention that comes out of one of the participating universities there. And that was great because they gave us some seed funding that we could put straight towards the business. Our other grants are for just science, and they gave us 50 grand and a bunch of in-kind contributions, some other things that we really needed to operate, like legal fees and accounting support. So both have been really great for what they provided.
Awesome.
Which it was different in each case.
And Judy, you're part of Tarmac Accelerator, and I know you also pitched to tons of accelerators, right? So how's your experience in that regard?
Applied to text. So I've been rejected or no replied to by all the accelerators you can think of. Techstars and YC, for example, was a finalist, or got to finals for Sputnik, interviewed for Div Inc., for Mass Challenge, semi-finalist. There's a few others in there. Oh, TMCX. They just said, oh yeah, we really like you. You just got to really refine some kind of business model. And that was like a year ago. And I did, I think, 8 different experiences of those until I finally got to Tarmac.
Wonderful. And how's Tarmac working for you? I mean,
it's great. I think if you can really embrace that it's an unstructured environment, where you got to be a self-starter. You do get fed some events, and there's some requirements that you got to do. But if you can really embrace just how much is available to you and be a self-starter, I mean, you've got the Tarmac network. You've got and that's part of a larger international social impact accelerator network called INCO, and then you've got the Capital Factory network, and then there's, Austin itself is, can be an accelerator if you're able to connect the right dots. I think that really the biggest thing is just continuing, for me, it's continuing to seek feedback about like why this won't work, and to try to largely ignore well-intended advice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of well-intended advice. But yeah, I could talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, I think for us, having 9 months to really figure out the mechanics of a business model, to be able to articulate, line up people, really take advantage of all the resources around Austin. I mean, that's great for where we're at, and I don't think it's going to be our last accelerator, but I love it for fitting where we're at.
Awesome. And Jesse, you're also part of the Mass Challenge. Were you?
Can I ask this one question before you? So I think by what you taught, I think it's really good to get exposed to investors or partners who are willing to talk about technologies or ideas. And then I think I don't know if I can do this because I'm not invited. I'm just an attendee, but I'm from KX, and then we also have tech fund under our company. So it's Irish company, technology company, which provides the world's fastest time series database in the world. And then we've been here for 25 years, and then we're powering JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. So that's huge capital market. So our clients are still 17 out of 20 top investment bank for our clients. We're now working with NASA, we're raising some interesting companies, and then Fortune 500 smart manufacturing companies like that, who's dealing with huge amount of data, which is super fast. And then we are open for anybody who's having startup, to have a partnership when it comes to technology. So because we are fast, we're really fast. We're 340 times faster than Hadoop ecosystem when we're using 12 times less hardware, which means we can provide lower total cost of ownership. And we also invest money, but we more focused on providing our technology for free because, yeah, I'll be honest, it's real expensive, but we provide it for free for startups. So I don't know, if there's any.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but actually we'll come through the group and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Sorry, if you have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say because you were talking about it's really hard to get the first intention from accelerator or somebody. I feel maybe there's a possibility for anyone in this room and then my company to have a partnership so that they can get some next step, because we also provide some marketing technologies and everything. So
cool, awesome.
Thank you.
yeah, just wanted to let you guys know because even for the speakers, I think I really want to talk to you guys after this session because it's some of those sound really interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll really come through the audience. Thank you. So Jesse, how was your Mass Challenge experience? And are you part of another accelerator also? You said earlier.
Yes, I tell you what, I'm part of multiple accelerators. When you're trying to get the government to pay for healthy brains for poor people, you need all the help you can get. Yeah. So the hardest accelerator to get in was the first, and we used it as more of an incubator, even though it was an accelerator. We also, that was healthcare focused. We got into Capital Factory as well, which is general accelerator, and it gave us lots of benefits as well, being that we're here. We joined another healthcare focused accelerator that's in Silicon Valley and in New York, and they help us with the coasts. Mass Challenge helped us build more of a network with the community, brought in additional funding. They helped us pave relationships, got us more exposure. We're now invited to join, we've been invited to join a lot of other accelerators as well. We've just been invited to join TMCX. We've been invited to join Techstars, Dream It, but you can't do them all. They can be a distraction, as you said. There's a lot of advice, there's a lot of noise. Sometimes it doesn't exactly fit your needs, and these programs, what I've figured out with this startup company that does need more help because of the long sales cycle is you can continue to leverage these resources. And if you've heard that advice before, if you don't need accelerator, sessions and boot camp to learn. What you can do is bring in a new junior team member and have them participate in it. And that's how you stair step it up, and you keep getting the benefits of the accelerator, and then they get to learn from it. And then you know, if you've already heard the startup accelerator kind of advice, the senior members of the team don't have to actually participate. So that's kind of how we're doing it, and we're using it heavily.
At what point of time we need to meet accelerators?
Say that again.
At what point we need to get the accelerators, like at the starting point or?
Yeah.
What's the right time to get into accelerators?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the start as soon as possible, I say. Yeah, as soon as they're ready for you, you're ready for them, more than likely.
And more so for B2B accelerators, I think that also goes back to his point, because for B2B accelerators, B2B companies, the biggest stumbling block is, as he said, obscurity. Because if I wanted to talk to someone at the biggest level on engineering, when they don't know who I am and they don't know what we do, and we don't have any credibility, that's when the accelerators, because of the fact that they have a lot of network and also have people that served in the past at various big companies that have all this network available to them, they'll do recommendations, and that's how we got most of our recommendations when we wanted to talk to people at high places in bigger companies and larger companies. And accelerators are really a great step, even if you don't want the funding that they provide, or even if you don't want the hand-holding that they provide. I think the biggest advantage, at least from my perspective, is the network they provide and the recommendations and the referrals that they provide to different companies and the folks in companies. Do you guys have any other inputs on when's the right time to join the accelerators? And
I mean, I think you said it. You said it best. Yeah.
so
I would say just make sure it's a fit for your
That's
company.
right.
That research all the mentors and investors that are at that accelerator. Make sure that they can help you, and any strategic partners that accelerator has in any enterprise partnerships that they have. Make sure that those are good for you. Make sure it's a fit, and then make sure they don't take too much equity in your company. Yeah, equity free is a great way to go when those are there. Man, you can't beat that.
I guess we're all in or have been through equity free.
Yeah.
And it's a great time in Texas, because at least in Austin we have like 2 major equity-free accelerators. I think, was there, other than Tarmac and Mass Change, is there anything else equity-free here?
Not that I'm aware of.
TMC.
Yeah.
Well, they're in Houston. But
Oh yeah, that's the.
yeah. Now, I would say this. Maybe not like specifically temporal, but like I would say the right time to come to at least apply for an accelerator and do it is when you're coming in from a position of strength, rather than we don't know what the heck we're doing. I think that they need to be just as excited about your product as you are about your opportunity as you are about them. Because an accelerator can only really provide resources, right? They can help you, provide you with conversations that lead somewhere, but if all you've really got is just the start, I mean, I'm sure that there are some, let's say like pre-idea accelerators. Those are going to be few and far between. I found myself as an early entrepreneur often like falling into this cyclical trap of like, oh, a YC or a Techstars is going to save me, right? Like, no, I really had to save myself first and figure out like, even like a 0 to 1 kind of like idea of product market fit. And I will say this as well, at least doing the exercise of the accelerator applications was helpful for refining the critical high points and drivers of the idea.
So what's the key criteria like any of these accelerators look for to get entry into, and for them to entertain it and take it forward?
That depends, and they're probably
Like,
going to tell you.
different accelerators that you have experience with, right? I mean, from what someone was saying, like you have been talking to many accelerator programs.
Oh, so you want me to like sort of go by?
Not not each of those, but in general, I mean, what do you think would be the key criteria to go with this?
Is there a big enough market for this?
Okay, so the product fits.
No, market size and opportunity. Yeah, I mean, there's like problem solution fit, there's product market fit, but there's also like market opportunity, right? And so like it's got to be a large enough market, maybe not in like your initial beachhead market, right? But like what else can you sort of jump off onto that can really excite people, right? And you know, Mike Millard from Mass Challenge really you know, gave me some critical advice when in our one-on-one he told me really emphasize how like multi-purpose your platform is. So it's little things like that can help you talk up like the TAM, the total addressable market. And that's what's going to help you stand out, because that early on, I mean, unless you've got some like really novel technology that you've executed onto the fullest, and now you're looking for that critical next step. I mean, like chances are your product is going to like suck compared to where you want it to be. Does that help?
Yeah, that answers the question.
Great. Okay.
So my next question is, I know a lot of people in Austin, when they look for, you know, funding their startup, they always feel that Austin is not the right place to start their companies or to fund their companies. I know yours is more like a...
Disagree with the first, agree with the second.
Yeah, so I wanted to get your opinions on that, which is like, is Austin a good place to start companies? And is this the right place to raise money for
I would actually want to step back and sort of let them have more of the spotlight, but the long story short is I think Austin's a great place to grow a company, especially if you're early on as a founder. I think that there's no shortage of willingness to collaborate. But yeah, for funding, I think unless you're in something really niche, I mean, it's really left coast or right coast. Although my buddy Ryan Raffles, who just raised like a nearly $3 million round, he got a lot of money from overseas. And I just came back from Hong Kong, where they're, you know, I went through a mini accelerator and pitch competition there, but they're really aggressively funneling money towards you know, attracting international startups. I mean, don't discount that. If your health technology has international reach, and certainly, I mean, you could probably speak to just regulations being a lot easier to deal with overseas.
So how, I mean, in your opinion, do you find Austin to be a great place to start a company, or would you rather have started elsewhere?
No. For our business, there's some specific advantages, but I would just say broadly that Austin's a great place. Maybe we don't have the most venture capital firms or unicorn whatever companies as San Francisco or Boston do, but it's easier to stand out here, and it's easier to make things happen that are really risky and maybe not proven. So it's a great place for invention and value creation.
What about you, JC? I mean, what's your opinion on
The winters are easier.
Yeah, that's true.
And the lifestyle, it's kind of nice. I can attract people to come here from a recruiting standpoint. That is until it gets as expensive as the Bay Area here. And we're on our way there. I mean, we are.
Yeah.
At that point, I'll maybe give you a different answer on whether or not Austin's the place. But no, it's great in a lot of ways. You need to raise your money elsewhere for the most part. I mean, all these things are true, and it's much more complicated. It's much more complicated than you can generalize with statements like this. Every company can find a startup city, an ecosystem that fits them perfectly. There's so many different aspects. Like, it's really good for us to be in the middle of Texas. And I really like, Josh Pierre's approach of pulling this together as a statewide initiative. But yeah, being here at the state's capital, it's advantageous for us now that we've kind of pivoted away from selling to just hospitals. If we were just selling to health systems, we'd probably be better off down in Houston in the medical center, right? But we're also healthcare IT, and it really helps to work with our state legislators and being central to Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston helps. There's a lot of reasons that Austin works for us that wouldn't apply to other people's companies.
Awesome. I think we are close to, we're already at 8:30, so I'll try to wrap it up with a single question, which is, maybe I'll keep it short. What's your biggest challenge right now with Cloud9 side? What's your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge right now, we already talked about having to go to the coast to raise money, so I won't repeat that again. But the talent issue of finding really good, reliable sales and business development people has just been particularly a challenge for us. I'd say that you can't always have good luck, and we've been very fortunate in a lot of ways. We haven't been so lucky in finding good, really sales, like people like, hey, this guy back here, you're a salesperson, right?
I'm a sales guy and a data scientist.
Ooh, and a data scientist. That's an interesting combo.
Yeah.
But yeah, as he said, it's not easy, and you need to find, it can be actually your most important hire with an enterprise software company in the beginning. So yeah, that's important. I'd say that's a challenge for us.
What about you, Judy? What's your biggest challenge right now?
It'd be easy to say, get a first big customer, but really, I think the honest answer, the intellectually honest answer is to find the right co-founder or the right first hire. It is very hard. Kyle Simpson is somebody who gave me some really, we had a few great conversations, and we talk about like 0 to 1 pure teal, but it's even harder to go from 1 to 2. And so yeah, I'll just keep it at that. Biggest challenge.
Awesome.
That's tough.
What about you? What's your biggest challenge at Differgen? I know you may be pivoting, right, from Differgen to.
Yeah, so we're bringing in newer drugs. So
awesome.
Which is more challenges. So challenges are opportunities, and our opportunity right now is to raise the next round of money to get things to the next value inflection point. It's a really, it's a risky, high reward proposition. So that's where we're at right now. That's where we're focused.
Awesome. I think that's the end of my questions. Anyone else has any questions that they wanted to ask?
We're raising $3 million just to get started. Yeah. That's going to be seed for us because we've been getting by on non-dilutive funds thus far. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you very much for participating in this panel. It's been a great honor for me to have you here and ask you these questions.
Thanks for having us here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think before we leave, we just wanted to go through the room and maybe give a quick shout out if you're looking for something you would like to know.
Getting catch up.
Anyone would like to?
Yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Make an announcement.
Yeah, make an announcement or shout out. So, or maybe we'll just go through the room for whoever is left. Want to introduce yourself and tell what you're doing?
Sure. So it was in the pitch deck. I got it. Accelerator with the pitch deck. My first company I started was a social network.
Talk about timing.
Yeah.
Closely resembles the experience of the DMV. We bring a doctor or healthcare provider to your house. Have your minor illnesses or injuries treated in.
Oh, is this fetch? Is this fetch?
This is Remedy Urgent Care.
Oh, got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fetch for healthcare.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
And so I work for them part-time, and I'm here because this stuff is
Yeah.
Cool. You want to go?
I'm Ralph Boyna, work for a company called Info into Retail Solutions. I'm here because I like to hear how different people are achieving success in startups. I tried my hand at a couple of them, didn't work out, so I want to hear what are the good things and what are the bad things that should be done or should not be done.
Yeah, Prasad, I was practicing. So it's like more mental issues company. So I just came to understand like how this can be done, how to grow the idea.
Awesome.
I'm Arvind Dharmati. I work in the identity and access management domain.
Oh, that's interesting.
For the state.
No, that's not interesting.
My name is Dory, and I co-own a company called Chastain Partners, and we do accounting for startups here in Austin. So I just love being part of the startup community.
And Dory is also sponsoring our next event in December, so thank you very much.
Yes, I'm back, December 17th.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of experience with your business?
Chastain.
Our company is Chastain Partners, accounting for startups and CFO and forecast models too for pitching to potential investors. We do a lot of that for startups.
Awesome.
I'm Brian. I'm product manager, marketing, and customer success. My next opportunity. I'm one of the co-organizers of Austin's Health Technology Forum Meetup chapters. And I came to this because I was really fascinated. I've actually heard JC talk. I heard him at Pitch a Kid. That was the first place.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
You just did that.
That's a long time ago.
I mean, that was one of the hardest groups to pitch, and one of the maybe the most rewarding because
They're tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get anything by the kids, man.
Right.
They call you out.
You can get some really good feedback. Because if they're pouting or they're looking bored, you're probably not reaching.
It's not simple enough. If you can't pitch to a kid, your
Right.
message
Exactly.
isn't simple enough.
Yeah, and so this is great. It's my first time here.
But
So.
also you said healthcare technology forum.
Yeah.
Is it a monthly meeting or?
Well, it's been a little inactive in Austin because it's the international group. So the events have been in Palo Alto and San Francisco. But yeah, we try to every quarter. So we're gonna get kicked off again. Yeah, it's kind of similar to this. Some of our meetings have been a lot like this one.
Awesome.
My name is Seth. This is the first time I'm here as well. Brian invited me. Have a background in healthcare and different aspects of it in sales, and kind of working to transition right now to either customer success or some copywriting and doing different things that way as well.
You said healthcare and sales? I sense an
Yeah.
opportunity somewhere.
So did you say you're also looking for sales manager role?
We have a customer success.
Hi, my name is Sheldon. This is my first time here. I actually moved here from the Bay Area. And so my background is actually, I started my career in telecom, voice over IP, and I transitioned into right now doing network infrastructure. So I do project-based work, where we help startups and enterprise IT to optimize their product and service portfolios. So ranging from hardware, software, and network infrastructure services.
My name's Shelley Atwood. I'm the founder of Elemental Arts Productions. We're creating a health app that will change the way that patient education, empowering people, is delivered.
Mark, I'm a graphic designer. I just have moved to startups and things going on in Austin. This is not my first. Not my first meetup.
I'm Colin, web designer. I'm looking for a developer as a co-founder to create a social media website built around connecting people as communities rather than just as individual, as most websites are, but really focusing on their real world communities and that being the general main idea. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I'm JD Picard. I'm a product designer and product manager. I'm actually new to Austin. I moved here. My girlfriend's here, but I just imported from London. And I'm still working for a company in London, which means I love products and designs. I've always worked for startups, still work for a startup in London. But that means I wake up at 6 in the morning and I'm done with work by 1, 2 p.m. So I have a lot of free time and I'm looking for projects, other projects to join. Not that I
Cool.
I'm Ritesh. I work at Siemens Software. We develop software for engineering simulations, primarily for automotive and aerospace industries. I'm here just to see what's cooking in Austin and try to see how people are building companies and what are the challenges, and just to understand what's going on.
Hopefully not least. I'm Kisa Hashitaka, and I'm also a recent transplant. I worked for a healthcare startup in Northern Virginia before living here, so just trying to see what's going on.
Welcome.
So yeah, I mean, if any of you are, I know there's a couple of folks that wanted to work with companies. So if you can just reach out to me or Lily, what we do is we send out a newsletter. I don't know if you saw the newsletter today or not. Usually once a month I send out a newsletter with jobs and things like that people are looking for, and also some updates. So if any one of you is looking for partnering or joining a company, let me know. We'll just put it in the newsletter and send it out. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you.
for coming today, and
Thanks too much.
you all have a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the weekend. Long weekend.
Daniel, here. Yeah, it's totally connected.
Hey, thank you.
Let's be friends.
Thank you for coming, and yeah, it was really awesome.
Yeah. I'll take yours first. And I will give you mine.
Usually, if it's not.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So
yeah, you gotta become a group.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know like what sort of like how it would fit for you, because
I was hoping I
found
would
like
maybe 10 or 15 more, but
a stack of business cards like this thick now, and just ready to activate. I don't know like
YouTube. I'll send you the link.
Exactly like would be best for let's say like tech, but I mean I know the people who know the people.
Yeah. And are you is UT a customer? You're an alumni, right?
So I just had my meeting with the dean today. That I didn't want to go all about that on stage, but yeah. So they're moving us to the next round of decision makers so that we can do a pilot launch. That's all. We just need to, But it looks like they want to fast lane us and that, or fast track us, and that's great. Yeah, the timing is awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I spend every day on campus.
Oh, you are?
I'm part of their patents and licensing group.
Really?
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in, because you mentioned you knew a lot about patents. I mean, I don't know how we could enhance it, but I'm sure that there's like some methodology patents we can file. There's something we could probably file around our technology that would make it more just like defensible. And I mean, UT obviously is like really trying to jump on the horse about like just technology commercialization.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's definitely resources here for that for each.
Right.
Yeah. Let's get together soon to brainstorm. Get coffee or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here all the time. Yeah, and let me know how else I can help you. Other than just Hong Kong, I'm happy to help you with that as well.
Get your creativity to work. Sure. Well, yeah, let's get together soon, man. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, definitely. See ya.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah.